Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you today with Uncanny X-Men 336. This is part 17 of the Onslaught event that we've been going through. And I know since we had to restart the channel, a lot of the other videos have not been re-uploaded, so I'm going back through and I'm seeing which ones I have backed up and which ones may be missing, so I can re-upload the ones we have and re-record the ones that did not make it to my backup. So the past Onslaught reviews will come back up slowly but surely. But I figure in the meantime, let's just move forward. And this was an interesting story because things really start to take shape because we find out from Fantastic Four 415, I think it was, that Franklin was abducted by Onslaught. And you see here that, he's in this void place. And he's talking, he goes, "Please, mister, you gotta wake up. You gotta help me, please. I'm trying not to be, but I'm scared." And so you come to find out that in this void, he is talking to essentially a comatose Charles Xavier. So this one is called A Voice as Deep as Thunder. And it is Scott Lobdell writing, I think it's Joe Madureira doing the penciling, Tim Townsend doing hold on. Let me show you why this gets a little confusing, and I wish when people do their credits, they wouldn't do it this way, because, I know Scott Lobdell, I know Joe Madureira is doing the penciling, but then you go Townsend Dell. Okay. So is this all the inkers then? Townsend, Dell, V. Russell, Milgram, inkers. And then, of course, Harris, editor-in-chief. Comic Crafts doing the lettering, and Buccoletto. And Team Buccoletto doing the colors. I wish that they wouldn't abbreviate those, because it makes it real hard sometimes to differentiate. But anyway, Franklin says, "I recognize you, Dr. X. You're a friend of my mom and dad's, and you're strong like them, with powers. I remember. Come on, let's go find them." And so he's trying to get this comatose Xavier to wake up because he doesn't want to deal with Charlie again. And so this is kind of like the astral plane kind of taking place inside of Onslaught. And how, Onslaught has all these machinations for Franklin on how he wants to conquer the world. And then we go into seeing kind of the aftermath of what happened in X-Men 55 after Onslaught let his citadel arise out of the sky, or out of the ground, and hit the world with an EMP where a lot of people lost power and, a lot of people were hurt. Now it's kind of interesting. And then if y'all remember, what was it? I can't remember what issue it was where Uatu and Apocalypse first meet. It was one of the Uncannys, I believe, but I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head. Feel free to let me know down in the comments below. But anyway, they're talking. And Apocalypse says, "I confess, Uatu, I'm impressed." And Uatu's like, "Indeed? By what, Apocalypse? The pain and the suffering unleashed by Onslaught's electromagnetic vortex that nearly tore this city asunder? Surely you have no interest in the behaviors of these mere humans who have come together as a result of this tragedy." And he goes, "Interest? No. But I respect their bid for survival, doomed as it is, of course. But I was referring to Charles Xavier's hand in all of this. I did not believe Xavier had the strength to visit so much damage upon the world." Now, Uatu is kind of really giving Apocalypse a lot to think about. And he goes, "This is the creature you've always wanted to see. Onslaught's a new life form. He goes above Homo superior. He is," Apocalypse goes, "he is that which will survive." So he has a moment, he's like, wait, this thing can actually out-survive me, because Apocalypse is always saying, I'm supposed to be the ultimate survivor. Let's get past the good old ads here. And so without really getting into the whole meat and potatoes of what's kind of going on with Cyclops and Sue Storm, because they're kind of the focus of this particular comic, we cut over to Joseph, whose first appearance was Uncanny X-Men 327. And Joseph appeared last issue. The Avengers said we found him, and, he doesn't have any recollection of who he is. So he's just trying to help with this destruction. So he pulls this subway out of the ground. And these people are like, it's him. It's Magneto. It's his fault. And so Gambit pulls him out of the way because these people want to murder him. And he's like, Gambit, these people, they were frightened of me. There's a lot you don't know about the man you was, the life you led. For you came, before you came who you are now. But this ain't the time and place. And Joseph's like, to see such fear, such hatred, what kind of man was I? Now, what was kind of interesting during this time period is Rogue kind of has a thing for Joseph, and I think that goes back to Claremont and Jim Lee's thing that happened in the Savage Land with Rogue way back at when with Magneto. But Rogue's saying, she was like, that must have been hard for you to talk to Joseph that way. And he goes, not really. Not having you in my life, that was hard. And I always appreciate their relationship. And that's why, again, I will have the videos come back up. But if you guys have not read, was it Kelly Thompson, I think it was? She wrote a miniseries called Gambit and Rogue. And then she wrote another series before Dawn of X called Mr. and Mrs. X. Phenomenal run. And I'll try to get those back up as well because that was worth picking up and reading. Now, we cut back to the Fantastic Four's Baxter building. And you can kind of see some of the victims of battle, like Iron Man, Vision, Ant-Man, not Ant-Man. Yes, Ant-Man. I was thinking of the Atom for some reason. So I'm like, this isn't DC. Anyway, Reed's musing about how they can take down Onslaught. And he's just going and going and going like a machine, just boom, 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 boom. And I love how Jean here, she says, fascinating. In many ways, this man is the sort of father of the modern age heroes. The Fantastic Four are what the X-Men, what the Avengers, for that matter, aspire to be. To think that in all the midst of this madness and personal tragedy, he, meaning Reed, manages to hold it all together. So I love how, I think Lobdell, what he's doing here, Lobdell, he's giving a nod to what Kirby and Stan Lee did. How, before we had the Avengers, before we had the X-Men, before we had Daredevil, the Hulk, the modern day heroes, the Fantastic Four were Marvel's first family. And they kind of gave birth to that superhero team because, they predate Spider-Man and all that stuff. And so I think that's what Lobdell's doing here, and I really appreciate that because I like that Gene just gives that nod. And then we turn the page to the Thing who's lifting this big heavy thing, and we get another nod because he goes, yo, Reed, where you want this Kirby Q2000 diagnostic meter thingamajig? So I think that was Lobdell's kind of nod to all these heroes. Now anyway, fanboy aside, Sue and Cyclops get into the Citadel, and they start to see Onslaught evolving. And so stakes start to raise really, really quick. But we're not going to get into all that and who shows up to help. But Franklin is finally able to wake up Xavier. And he's like, do you trust me? He's like, of course I do. You're mommy and daddy's friend. And he's kind of giving Xavier a rundown of what Onslaught's doing. And he's like, dear God, does this monster know no bounds? But as you can see here, you start to see Onslaught evolving. And you see it starts getting more and more terrified. And Onslaught's trying to say, well, what can you do, Xavier? Your powers don't work here. Well, anyway, Joseph shows up to the fight. And, Gambit, I think, kind of gives him a little more 411 of what's going on. He goes, enough of whatever demons you're wrestling with, Onslaught. Instead, pay attention to the battle at hand. Joseph is it. How fitting that the prodigal father would choose this moment to appear. He's like, you're not the first person to imitate our connection, Onslaught. So be it. And so the X-Men start to fight, and Cyclops notices a crack in the armor. And so everybody starts to attack, and Onslaught's saying, I don't need my host anymore. Is this evidence enough? And so he shows everybody Xavier, and Xavier kind of finds out that he's like, I'm existing on two planes. I'm existing in the astral plane and the physical plane. And so everybody attacks. And Thor, seeing this moment of opportunity with Xavier, busts him free of Onslaught. So you're just kind of, yeah, the day is won. Uh-oh. So you think that, saving Xavier and getting the host out of Onslaught would be enough. Well, yeah, that's not really the case. But it's nice to see Charles finally free of this abomination. So yeah, this was like the first part, there's a little bit of build-ups here, just kind of come on. But when it starts to get into the action, you're like, oh yeah. And you start to see, all the team work together, the Avengers, the X-Men, some of X-Force, the Fantastic Four. You're just like, yeah. You're just definitely geeking out. And it's really interesting to see the moments between Xavier and Franklin. They're really nice human interest moments. So again, I like what Lobdell did here. Lobdell, say that 3 times fast. Lobdell did. But anyway, yeah, this was a good read. I like a lot of what he's trying to do, especially since, as I said in past reviews, that Lobdell didn't really have an idea of what Onslaught was, other than he just wanted the idea of someone that could beat the crud out of the Juggernaut. So I like that he took that, expounded upon it, collaborated with all the X writers and Marvel writers, and just made this event. And that has to be some pretty big shoes to fill, especially since this came out on the tails of the Age of Apocalypse. So, bravo, Mr. Lobdell, and I can't wait to review the next book in this series, which, for this, if you want to see what happens next, is continued in Cable number 35, which I do not have, so we are going to be jumping into the next book that I do have. What is it? Well, make sure to tune in same bat time, same bat channel, True Believers, and I will have the next Onslaught book up soon. If you've enjoyed this book, please make sure to call your local comic shop and see if, during the time of this recording, if they can mail it to you, curbside service it to you, or deliver it to you, because a lot of them are doing it right now. And if this is the future and you fancy future people are watching this, take a moment out of your day to go pick up this comic book. And if you've enjoyed this review, please make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know, especially since we had to start over, which breaks my heart, but had to be done. So with all that said, hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, True Believers.